Okay, so I decided to start the live now, even though I'm like 2 minutes early, just because Sara has exactly 30 minutes, and I just want to make sure that everything is set up, you hear us, so we could jump straight into questions. So I'm going to wait for her to join here so that we could start right away. I'm going to request that you don't ask questions. I don't want to block your comments in case you don't hear us in the middle, so you could comment. So don't ask us if we're saving it. I'm going to try my best to save it. And yeah, that's basically that. So all questions were asked in advance, so I have it right here. And I'm excited. Thank you all for being here. And I'm just going to wait for Sara to get on so that we could get our full half hour's worth. Let me know if... hi, Dahlia. Let me know if you hear me. I just want to make sure everything is perfect before we start. And I'm really excited. I really appreciate that Sara is taking time out of her really busy schedule to come be here with us. This is definitely something that we need in our community. A lot of, people never heard of pelvic floor therapy, and so many people need it. So I'm really looking forward to having her on here and really appreciate her time. So I'm just going to wait for her to join, and then we can get started. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm waiting. If anyone sees that she's on, if I missed it, just let me know. Hi, Alyssa from Tova Cosmetics. Just going to keep waiting. And yes, I'll be saving this live, God willing, if it allows me to. So, Shira. Just going to wait to see that she joined. Could you guys just confirm that you hear me clearly? I haven't seen... I know I'm sideways, so basically I've seen on Sara's lives before is that she goes on one side and the person goes on the other, so you turn the screen, and that way it's just not one person on top of the other, it's kind of sideways, so it's side to side. I decided to do it that way. Did anyone see her yet? So happy you hear me perfectly. Gabriella, hi. We're on a live streak tonight. We just had a live with Alea B Coaching, a private live for people who attended her class, and she did a continuation. So thank you, everybody. Wow, so many people joined. I hope Sara joins soon. I'm excited. Hi, Julia. Let me see if she joined. I don't know if you lost me. I'll just keep waiting. She should be here any minute. We confirmed with her. Here we go. Okay, here we go.
Hey.
Hi, how are you? I turned the screen sideways because I've seen you've done that before, and it just made more sense. I figure I'll try it.
No,
Hi, Sara, how are you?
Good. Hold on one second. I'm like goofing on this. I'm fine. I've got a sick kiddo, and my husband's doing bedtime. We always have a sick kiddo, so we're totally fine. But things are good. I'm so excited this is working out.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. My followers are really excited about this. So I guess let's start by introducing yourself. Tell everybody who you are.
Great. So my name is Sara. I am also known as the Vagina Whisperer, but I am a pelvic health physical therapist in New Orleans. I've been working as a pelvic floor therapist for about 13 years, and it's all that I've done is like I do vagina stuff. And it really means help. I actually treat men as well, so help women and men with issues that pertain to bladder health, bowel health, like pooping issues, pregnancy, birth, postpartum recovery, all that good stuff. So I started my Instagram account maybe almost 3 years ago, and it's crazy how much Instagram has changed and just become such a platform for connection and communication and sharing information. So I love doing events like this to kind of just, chat with more people and answer questions.
Okay, amazing. Okay, so let's start with the questions. So a bunch of people asked, how do your services work online? And why would someone come to you online versus somebody who does this locally?
So my services work online. So I have myself and a team of 3 or 4 other therapists. The reason we started the online sessions are because sometimes making a live appointment is hard with restrictions for work and time off. If you have children or childcare issues, and especially in that early postpartum period, it's really hard to make an appointment, like physically pack up your baby, get in the car. And we wanted to be able to offer people something that was convenient. It will never take the place of a live session. Like there's nothing like a hands-on session, which is what I do in our clinic, 5 days a week. But it is something that I think is a kind of fills a void where if you want some access to information or you can't get to a PT, you have the option to speak with one. We've worked with women all over the world, which is amazing. People who maybe are 2 hours from a therapist and can't get to one. So it's just to be able to give access to people who don't have somebody who's, just down the street.
Right. Okay, perfect. Okay, so how long postpartum is it normal to have pain during sex? And what are signs that you would need a pelvic floor specialist?
That's a great question. It's actually not normal at all. The first time having intercourse after giving birth can definitely be uncomfortable. I always recommend using a water-soluble lubricant, taking it super slow, and pain is an indicator that you're not ready or that something's not right. So, I often see women at around 6 weeks postpartum, right when they see their doctor, and they're still quite tender if they've had a perineal tear or an episiotomy, or even with a cesarean birth, sometimes people can have some vaginal soreness depending on how long they labored and all of those things. But a little bit of discomfort the first time may happen, but any pain, I would definitely start seeing a PT right away. It could literally be 1 or 2 sessions that you just learn how to soften those muscles and work on the scar and breathe a certain way that could make a big difference. But no amount of pain is normal. Some things outside of lubricant that we recommend are you can ice afterwards, like a bag of frozen peas is always in my freezer. It's not something you should have to do regularly, but if that first time you do have discomfort, put some kind of ice over the area for 20 minutes. But I would go see a PT if any time after 3 months you're having any sort of discomfort with intercourse. So
right. Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay, do you believe in Kegels?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Do you know why they're asking that question?
I think so. So it's a little bit of like, I think all we heard for 2 decades growing up was do your Kegels, do your Kegels. I mean, it was in our magazines and it's what your doctor tells you. And there's been a lot of information surfacing that Kegels are not for everyone, which is mind-blowing. But, I always say that your pelvic floor muscles are a basket of muscles. I kind of brought my model to show everyone. So this is your pelvis. They're a little... And at the base of your pelvis, so these are the outer muscles, and at the base of your pelvis, you have a basket of deeper muscles that sit like this. And these muscles support your baby, they support your organs, and they keep in pee and poop so that you're not leaking. A Kegel is a tightening of that muscle. But some people have already tight pelvic floor muscles. If you've got pain with sex, if you have maybe bladder issues, like you can't empty your bladder well, or you have constipation or some people are just tense and their tension is in that pelvic area, then Kegels are not the right thing for you. You're going to be like tightening a muscle that's already tight. So then we work a lot on relaxation and softening the muscle. I'm really big into yoga and doing yoga poses and breathing to help soften the muscle. So Kegels are definitely a legit thing for strengthening if strengthening is what you need. Oftentimes that's what we do in physical therapy is, do intravaginal assessments so we can say, are your muscles too tense or are they too weak? If they're too weak, then we may just want to do Kegels. If they're too tense, then we'll start with softening and lengthening. So I believe in them. I do them, but they're not for everyone right away.
It's not the only thing, right?
But it's not the only thing.
Right. Okay. What are the causes to pee after sneezing, and does that require pelvic floor therapy?
So all of my answers are going to be like, yes, see a pelvic floor therapist. Obviously, I'm, biased, but the way that these muscles are supposed to work is supporting against pressure whenever you cough or sneeze or jump or laugh. If those muscles are not working well, if they're too tense or too weak, then you can't support against that pressure, and then you get leakage because they can't keep the urethra shut. So again, it is definitely kind of a muscle issue. One of the things I tell people that can be a simple fix is to Kegel when they cough, to just do a Kegel contraction and see if they can prevent leakage with coughing or sneezing. They may not always catch it, but at least kind of get into that habit, and that may help. And yeah, if you are having leakage, any amount of leakage is kind of not considered normal. So leakage with a cough or sneeze, that's often how it starts with some people, and then it eventually can get worse to leakage with running or kind of, leakage later down the line. So you really want to try to get it sooner.
Right. And if someone else either doesn't have time or can't afford pelvic floor therapy and it's not covered by insurance, how bad is it if they do push it off? Are there long-term ramifications to kind of ignoring these little things?
I mean, it's hard to say, but, the research does show that even postpartum, women who are experiencing incontinence at 3 months will also likely be experiencing it at 1 year. So it does show you if you are, at a certain, either stage postpartum or certain age, it doesn't necessarily just get better by itself. You actively have to work to improve it. And leakage also can typically get worse with aging. With aging, your estrogen levels change and your muscles can get thinner and weaker down there, and that can also contribute to incontinence. So around this age of menopause, people often get leakage as well because those muscles aren't as strong. So, most insurance companies all insurance companies cover pelvic floor therapy. So it's just considered physical therapy. I don't take insurance, so it is kind of out of pocket for people to see our people at our clinic. But usually there's a hospital or a clinic that does offer physical therapy that's covered with insurance.
Right. Okay. Are there any exercises to do during pregnancy to avoid these type of issues?
Yeah. So it's a little bit with pregnancy. I think it's not just what to do, but what not to do. And we're not given a ton of education. I'm actually excited and really terrified because I'm working on a birth guide right now. I'm terrified because it's a huge project and I've been putting it off for a year. The reason I'm doing the birth guide is because I think that there's a lot that we can educate women on that prevents problems. Like, I feel like we've got more information than we're not always dealing with the aftermath. I feel like I've been doing damage control in my career for 10 years or 13 years, and I'd love to be able to get to issues before they start. So some of the things are what to avoid, and a big one is straining. So straining with pooping, straining when you are lifting something heavy, which means holding your breath. So a lot of people who maybe do CrossFit or heavy weightlifting, if they're straining and holding their breath, that can cause more weakness. And if you continue to do that during pregnancy, when your muscles are lengthened and weakened, it can add more of a deficit or a weakness. So things like that are quite simple. Also avoiding sit-ups, things that just put a lot of pressure on the abdomen and pelvic floor. Obviously, some things that will help are strengthening. So Kegels, but not just Kegels like sitting at your desk or in the carpool line. I think we have to train women to use these pelvic floor muscles when they need them. So we teach them to integrate them into squats, into lunges, into bending over to pick up a car seat, into lifting heavy boxes, pushing something. So all of these things that you've got to use the muscle when you need it, and not just sit around and do Kegels all day. So both of those things, I think, not straining and then engaging your pelvic floor and your deep abdominal wall muscles can help prevent leakage and even diastasis, which is abdominal separation, and also a common thing during pregnancy.
Right. Okay, thank you. So what are services that you offer for pregnant moms?
So in our clinic, we're located in New Orleans. We do it's called a pregnancy wellness package, and we usually see women for 4 visits. And in each of those sessions, the first session is a lot of information gathering. We look at posture, we look at their abdominal wall to see if they have a diastasis. We look to see if they can even do a Kegel properly, if they can bear down properly, which is what you need to do for a bowel movement or giving birth. So we kind of do an assessment, and then we teach them on body mechanics, little things like getting out of bed, how to pick something up, how to get out of a chair, how to get out of the car, all these little day-to-day things that can, if you're doing them improperly, can lead to weakness in certain areas. And then train them really on how to give birth. If they are planning on a vaginal birth, teaching them how to bear down and relax their muscles while they're not holding their breath. We do that in different positions because research shows that lying on your back is not the optimal position for birthing. So we do it in side lying, hands and knees, deep squatting, all of these things. And then, just work on comfort measures, keeping them comfortable for pregnancy. And then we also do a lot on postpartum recovery. So we usually spend 1 session at least on postpartum recovery, either before or after, even giving them guidance before birth, because once you have the baby, then you're like, oh shit, what do I do now? So everything from taking your first poop, what to do if you can't pee, if you have a cesarean birth, like tips on how to comfort measures for your scar, everything, lifting a toddler if you're having a second kid, all those things that, again, just can kind of fall through the cracks and nobody guides you on. In our online sessions, we do much more kind of tactical birth preparation stuff, going over, again, in and out of bed stuff, diastasis stuff, bearing down, peeing, pooping, all the good stuff. Right. So
you guys should open up another place in New York.
I actually, it was a thought. I think right now my plate is kind of full, but right. We never know what's going to happen. I never thought that I would even have a clinic or an online option. So things are evolving in a really amazing way. So, we just never know.
Right. Wow. That's awesome. Let me just see. She wrote this. As a first-time mom to a 3-year-old, I'm afraid of having another baby because I had severe pelvic floor issues. Are the same issues likely to occur again?
It's a great question, and I think a totally valid question. If you've been through something that's been difficult or traumatic even, it's obviously, going into something can feel that same way, and there's a lot of unknowns with pregnancy and with birth. The good news is, I think a lot of times with second-time moms, we're more prepared. We get a lot more information. We want to be informed going into birth. And I also, and the research actually shows that a lot of, I don't want to say damage, but any issues that arise in the pelvic floor happen during your first birth with pregnancy, with prolapse and also with perineal tearing. So the research is showing that the first birth is really where the majority of issues happen, not necessarily the second. So that's good news. The second thing is that I think thinking about a second birth, thinking about what would work for you. Maybe a cesarean birth is an option that you'd want to consider because you've had some pelvic floor trauma with your first birth. Or you want to have a doula to help support you, or you want to go to physical therapy, or there's a lot of different options. But, I think just being more informed and feeling like you've got a support team in place can make a big difference.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Can a pelvic floor specialist help someone who had many C-sections? And what would you suggest for them?
Absolutely. So 30% of women are giving birth via C-section. So this is definitely something we see. The first thing that I work on with moms who've had a cesarean birth is scar massage. The reason is because I'm such a nerd and I'll say the research shows, but it just gives us information that cesarean scar restrictions can lead to pelvic pain, painful sex, issues, pooping, bladder issues. And we don't always think of like, oh, but I had a cesarean birth. How could my pelvic floor or pelvis be affected? It absolutely can. The muscles, the abdomen, and the pelvic floor are so closely connected. So I work a lot on scar massage, on abdominal muscle strength, and then even doing a pelvic floor exam to check if their pelvic floor is working well, if it's tense or weak or anything like that. But a scar massage is definitely the first thing I'd start with.
Right. Okay. And the same person said that she has occasional back pain during sex. So what could be done for that?
Yeah, I would definitely, so two things. I mean, I would definitely start working on scar massage. There's a lot of videos online. I've got a couple Instagram posts that you can check out as well. But if you are also not engaging your core properly, or you may have some core weakness, it could lead to back pain. So, I mean, thinking about you had a major abdominal surgery, maybe didn't get any rehab or strengthening after, it could be contributing to some back pain as well. So, and just having a baby, I mean, we're pregnant, our abs are distended, everything gets lengthened and weakened. That can by itself, even if it's not a cesarean birth, contribute to back pain.
Right. Okay. If your doctor says nothing's wrong and the back pain isn't so bad, basically, if the doctor suggests you don't need PT, should someone reach out anyway? Is this something the doctor has to refer you first?
Yeah, I would find a new doctor. So I would say it's your body. One of the biggest things that I advocate for is that women become their own advocates for ourselves and for our children. I feel like I've been to way too many doctors who dismiss the issues I have, but it's my body and it's affecting my life. So I would either find another doctor who can refer you to physical therapy. It can be a primary care doctor. It could be it could be a dentist. It could be a chiropractor. But in most states, you don't have to have a referral from a physician to attend your first session of physical therapy. Your insurance may require it, but just to see a PT like myself, you don't have to have it. So I would call up some clinics and say, hey, either do you know a doctor I can go see who is an advocate for physical therapy? And I think that I would absolutely go. Because again, these things aren't just going to get better by themselves. Like if you have knee pain, it usually just progressively gets worse if you keep running on it or cycling or whatever. It's the same thing with pelvic floor issues.
Right. Okay. Here's another one from, I'm a virgin and I'm saving sex for marriage and I'm super afraid of the pain. I'm getting married in 2 months. Any advice?
Yes. This is actually something that we see in our clinics pretty occasionally. So there's two things. I think that when we are afraid of something or fearful, what does our body do? It tenses up, right?
Right.
So if these are muscles that we need to soften and relax to have intercourse, we don't want to be in this super tense, tight state. So I would do some actually personal work on doing some yoga, doing some relaxation work, doing some self-work, whatever that may look like, working with a physical therapist to see if you can get to that state where you're not going to be tensing and tightening with attempts at intercourse. There are also these things called dilators. They look like tampons of different sizes, and you can practice with those. You can practice inserting them, and it can kind of almost like train your muscles to relax when something's inserted. So just like you would train for a race, you can train for sex, and it's a great option for you to kind of feel more comfortable not tensing up when something's inserted. So I definitely think there's some steps that you can take to kind of help prepare for that.
Right. Okay. Amazing. How do you prevent urinary leakage if you don't have now, but you're afraid it might come with age? Is it just Kegels?
It depends, right? So again, I can't just say do Kegels because I don't know if that person has a tense pelvic floor or a totally relaxed pelvic floor. I think one of the biggest things is avoiding straining, like we talked about. I say that a lot because a lot of the high intensity workouts that people do now, they don't even have to have kids and you can leak. Like CrossFitters, people who go to Orange Theory, high intensity exercisers, they're not going to get it necessarily, but these muscles have to meet the demand of what we put on them. So if you're lifting heavy weights or jumping, your muscles have to be strong enough to support that versus I just do yoga. I don't have a ton of high impact stuff. So maybe my muscles don't need to be able to support as much pressure. So I just say, depending on what your activities are, I would just make sure that your muscles can sustain that pressure. Again, these are all things that a physical therapist can work with you on. But one of the most common ones I see, though, outside of just strengthening is straining. And so not being constipated, avoiding constipation. If you follow me on Instagram, a squatty potty is like my number one thing. If there's one thing I have to have in my home, it's that. And that prevents, puts you in a squatting position to poop so that you don't have to strain and hold your breath. So definitely some things that you can do for prevention.
Right. Okay, amazing. So I finished with the questions here, and I just wanted to ask if there's anything that you could think of, any symptoms that people don't realize really does require PT. They think it's normal, that we didn't mention, if you could think of anything.
Absolutely. So I'll kind of split these into categories. I'll go into like pelvic pain and then bladder and bowel. So pelvic pain, some of the things that we see that people don't always think about is like tailbone pain. That could just be tailbone pain from cycling or sitting, but it can also happen during pregnancy and birth. Another one is there's some conditions called vulvodynia or vestibulodynia or pudendal nerve issues. That's all like pain in the vulvar area. So any kind of vaginal pain with sitting, wearing tight clothes, inserting tampons, a pelvic exam, sex, those are all typically where your muscles need to be assessed. Also endometriosis is something we see a lot of pain with and work with. When it comes to pooping, leakage of poop. So feel like you can't make it to the bathroom in time and actually like loss of stool, even if it's just a little bit. And pencil thin stools, like you're pooping and it comes out like really thin ribbons. I know this is probably way more description than you wanted. But
no, it's okay. Go ahead.
So that is a big one because it means your muscles aren't relaxing well. So it's like squeezing toothpaste through a tube. Constipation, again, is a huge one. And then even childhood constipation. So like pooping issues with kids is super common. I don't see children in my practice, but we have someone in New Orleans that does. Kids eat a ton of dairy and they don't want to go to the bathroom to poop because they don't want to quit playing, and it leads to long-term constipation. So we actually work a lot with parents to help with kids too. And then urinary issues like overactive bladder, feeling like you have to go to the bathroom all the time, or you pee and then 30 minutes later you feel like you have to pee again. The normal range to pee is every 2 to 4 hours during the day. So if you're like going more often than that, that's usually an issue. And again, urinary leakage, burning with urination, chronic urinary tract infections, chronic yeast infections, those kind of things. And then, of course, all the pregnancy, postpartum related stuff, abdominal wall separation during pregnancy, postpartum. And then even later stages of, womanhood going into menopause, women typically have vaginal dryness, urinary leakage, things like that are kind of things we help with later on in life. So pretty much everything down there.
Yes.
There's nothing we don't treat when it comes to the pelvic floor.
Right. Okay, amazing. I'm glad we got this in under a half hour. I really appreciate you came. So if anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way?
So you can follow me on Instagram. It's probably the easiest, at The Vagina Whisperer. And I also have a website called The Vagina Whisperer, where you can just learn more about our online sessions, if you're in the New Orleans area or you're coming to visit. And then, again, we're putting out our birth guide. It's just going to be a week-by-week guide with, like, a tip and a movement or a stretch or something to help, a lot of preventative stuff. I feel like we just don't get that information from our docs, and we're just to kind of have it all in one place, I think would be really great for women. So.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
You too, and thank you.
It feels good.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to y'all because I was supposed to do this in September and we had a last minute reschedule. And so I'm super glad we were able to reconnect and do this. And we have a huge football game on tonight, so I'm so impressed that 150 people showed up. So that's a pretty good outcome.
Yes.
So thank y'all as well. Thanks so much.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care. You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you everyone for being here. I'm sorry we didn't answer all the questions over here. I just couldn't really read sideways, and I just wanted to keep to what we said. Sarah had exactly a half hour, and I just wanted to respect that. So if you have any questions, you can reach out. I've actually reached out to through her website. The answer emails very easy.